What happens when a 17-year-old human returns to Earth after single-handedly preventing an intergalactic war? Marcus Chen thought the hardest part was over when he defeated the Zephyrian Empire's greatest warriors and negotiated peace between 12 alien species. He was wrong. Now he faces his greatest challenge yet, surviving senior year at Westfield High School. The galaxy knows him as the Terran prodigy, the first human to master quantum combat techniques that took alien species millennia to develop. But his classmates only see the weird kid who disappeared for 8 months and came back different. They don't know about the neural implants that let him calculate probability matrices in microseconds, or the alien technology fused with his DNA that makes him faster and stronger than any human should be. They just know he's not the same Marcus who left. As Marcus tries to readjust to teenage life, he discovers that Earth itself has changed. Hidden beneath the surface of normal high school drama lies a conspiracy that threatens not just his hometown, but the entire planet. The alien technology inside him is reacting to something sinister, and his enhanced senses are picking up signals that shouldn't exist on Earth. The war he thought he'd ended is coming home, and, this time, detention hall might be the least of his worries. Marcus Chen stood at the entrance of Westfield High School, watching students stream past him like he was invisible. The familiar red brick building looked exactly the same as when he'd left 8 months ago, but everything felt different through his enhanced perception. His neural implants automatically cataloged each person's heart rate, stress levels, and potential threat assessment, information flooding his consciousness whether he wanted it or not. A group of seniors brushed past him, their laughter cutting through the morning air. Marcus recognized them from his old chemistry class, but none of them even glanced in his direction. To them, he was just another face in the crowd, not the boy who had disappeared without explanation last spring. They had no idea that the quiet kid they barely remembered had spent those missing months in the Andromeda sector, learning combat techniques from the Zephyrian warrior clans and mediating peace negotiations between species that had been at war for centuries. They couldn't see the quantum energy that flowed through his modified DNA, or the alien technology that had been integrated into his nervous system to save his life after a near-fatal encounter with a Vorthan battlecruiser. Marcus pulled his hoodie tighter and walked through the main doors, trying to ignore the way his enhanced hearing picked up every whispered conversation, every locker combination being entered, every footstep in the hallway. The cacophony of normal teenage life felt overwhelming after months of the controlled environment of alien spacecraft and diplomatic stations. Marcus? Marcus Chen? He turned to see Ms. Rodriguez, his old English teacher, approaching with a mixture of concern and relief on her face. She was one of the few faculty members who had actually noticed when he'd vanished from her class roster. "Where have you been?" she asked, lowering her voice. "Your parents said you were dealing with family issues, but you missed the entire end of junior year. We weren't sure if you were coming back." Marcus had practiced this conversation dozens of times during his journey back to Earth. The cover story his alien allies had helped him create was simple and believable: a sick relative in another state, family crisis, private tutoring to catch up on missed work. It was boring enough that most people wouldn't ask follow-up questions. "My uncle got really sick," Marcus said, the lie rolling off his tongue with practiced ease. "I had to help take care of him. I'm sorry I couldn't give more notice." Ms. Rodriguez nodded sympathetically. "Well, I'm glad you're back. You'll need to meet with the guidance counselor about making up your missed credits, but I'm sure we can work something out. You were always one of my brightest students." As she walked away, Marcus felt a familiar pang of guilt. Ms. Rodriguez had always been kind to him, encouraging his writing and pushing him to think critically about the books they read in class. She deserved better than lies, but the truth was classified at levels that didn't officially exist on Earth. The Galactic Council had made it very clear that knowledge of humanity's first contact with alien civilizations was to remain strictly controlled. Marcus made his way to his old locker, spinning the combination from muscle memory. The metal door swung open to reveal exactly what he'd left behind: a few textbooks, some old homework assignments, and a photo of him and his best friend Jake at last year's science fair. He stared at the picture for a long moment, remembering how excited they'd been about their solar panel efficiency project. It seemed like such a simple problem now, compared to the challenges he'd faced while trying to prevent an interstellar war. Well. Look who decided to show up. Marcus turned to find Derek Hoffman and his crew of football players approaching. Derek had been the closest thing Marcus had to a nemesis before his disappearance, constantly finding new ways to make his life miserable. The bigger boy's approach triggered Marcus's combat analysis systems automatically, highlighting weak points and calculating optimal strike patterns before he could stop himself. "Miss us, Chen?" Derek continued, his voice dripping with false friendliness. "Heard you had some kind of breakdown. That true?" Marcus forced himself to remain calm, suppressing the instinct to demonstrate just how much he'd changed during his time away. Derek and his friends were just teenagers being cruel in the way that teenagers often were. They weren't enemy combatants, no matter what his enhanced reflexes were telling him. "Just had some family stuff to deal with," Marcus replied evenly. "Nothing dramatic." Derek stepped closer, and Marcus could smell the protein shake on his breath, hear the elevated heart rate that indicated Derek was working himself up to something. In the Zephyrian combat schools, such obvious telegraphing of intent would have been laughable. Here, it just made Marcus sad. "Funny thing about family stuff," Derek said, reaching out to shove Marcus against the lockers. "It makes people weak." The push connected, but instead of sending Marcus stumbling backward as Derek expected, it felt like shoving a brick wall. Marcus's enhanced bone density and muscle fiber modifications absorbed the impact effortlessly. Derek's expression shifted from smugness to confusion as he registered that Marcus hadn't moved. "Everything okay over here?" Jake Morrison appeared at Marcus's shoulder, and Marcus felt a genuine smile cross his face for the first time that morning. His best friend looked exactly the same as he remembered, messy brown hair, thick glasses, and a backpack that appeared to be held together by duct tape and determination. Derek sneered at Jake's intervention but seemed to decide that picking a fight wasn't worth the effort this early in the morning. "Just welcoming Chin back to the real world," he said, backing away with his friends in tow. Once they were gone, Jake turned to Marcus with an expression of pure relief. "Dude, where the hell have you been? You just disappeared. Your parents wouldn't tell me anything except that you had to leave town for a family emergency. I must have texted you like 100 times. Marcus felt another stab of guilt as he looked at his best friend's concerned face. Jake had been his constant companion through 4 years of high school social torture, the one person who'd always had his back. If anyone deserved the truth, it was Jake. But the neural conditioning that had been installed to protect Earth's secret was absolute. Even thinking about revealing classified information caused physical pain. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, and he meant it. "My uncle got really sick, and my family needed me to help take care of him. I couldn't bring my phone, and I know I should have found a way to contact you, but everything happened so fast." Jake studied his face for a moment, and Marcus could see the analytical mind that had made them such good lab partners working through the explanation. Finally, Jake nodded, though Marcus could tell he wasn't entirely convinced. "Well, you're back now," Jake said. "That's what matters. Though you look different. Have you been working out? You seem, I don't know, taller somehow." Marcus couldn't explain that his height increase was due to spinal modifications that had been necessary to accommodate the neural interface ports, or that his improved physique was the result of training in artificial gravity fields 3 times stronger than Earth's. Instead, he just shrugged. "Lot of physical labor helping with the farm," he said. The warning bell rang, and students began moving toward their first period classes. Jake consulted his schedule and groaned. AP Calculus with Mrs. Henderson to start the day. "Want to walk with me? What's your first class?" Marcus pulled out his own schedule, which the guidance office had hastily reconstructed based on his previous course selections. "AP Physics with Mr. Yamamoto." "Nice. At least you get to start with something fun. I'll catch up with you at lunch, okay? I want to hear all about your mysterious adventure." As Jake disappeared into the crowd of students, Marcus made his way toward the physics classroom. The hallways felt surreal, like walking through a movie set of his own past life. Everything was familiar yet strange, like a place he'd once known intimately but now viewed through the lens of experiences no one else could understand. Mr. Yamamoto's classroom was exactly as Marcus remembered it, posters of famous scientists covering the walls, demonstration equipment scattered across lab tables, and the perpetual smell of ozone from electrical experiments. The teacher himself looked up from his lesson plan as Marcus entered. "Mr. Chen. Welcome back. I understand you've had quite an adventure." Mr. Yamamoto was one of Marcus's favorite teachers, a man who'd inspired his love of science and encouraged him to think beyond the conventional boundaries of physics. "Something like that," Marcus replied, taking a seat near the back of the classroom. As other students filed in, Marcus found himself analyzing the classroom from a tactical perspective that had become second nature. Exit routes, potential cover positions, sightlines to the windows. It was unnecessary paranoia for a high school physics class, but habits formed in combat zones died hard. The lesson began with Mr. Yamamoto explaining quantum mechanics to a room full of teenagers who mostly looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Marcus found himself comparing the simplified textbook explanations to the advanced quantum manipulation techniques he'd learned from the ethereal masters of Proxima 7. The gap between human scientific understanding and what was actually possible was staggering. "Now, who can tell me about wave-particle duality?" Mr. Yamamoto asked the class. Several hands went up, including Sarah Kim, a girl who'd been in Marcus's AP classes since freshman year. She gave a textbook-perfect explanation of the double-slit experiment and the uncertainty principle. "Excellent, Sarah. But let's think deeper. If observation affects quantum behavior, what does that tell us about the nature of reality itself?" The class fell silent, most students clearly out of their depth. Marcus found himself raising his hand before he could stop himself. "Yes, Marcus?" Well, Marcus began, trying to frame his response in terms that wouldn't reveal his advanced knowledge. "Maybe it means that reality isn't as fixed as we think it is. Maybe the act of observation doesn't just reveal what's already there, but actually participates in creating it." Mr. Yamamoto's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's a very sophisticated insight. Have you been doing some additional reading?" Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks as several classmates turned to stare at him. The old Marcus would never have volunteered such a complex answer in front of the whole class. "Just thinking about it a lot while I was away," he said quietly. The lesson continued, but Marcus caught Mr. Yamamoto glancing at him several times with an expression of puzzled interest. Marcus tried to keep his responses more mundane for the rest of the period, but it was difficult when the teacher was discussing concepts that Marcus now understood at levels that wouldn't be discovered by human science for decades. When the bell rang, Marcus gathered his books and started toward the door, but Mr. Yamamoto's voice stopped him. "Marcus, could you stay for a moment?" The classroom emptied, leaving Marcus alone with his teacher. Mr. Yamamoto leaned against his desk and studied Marcus with the same intensity he usually reserved for particularly challenging physics problems. "You've changed," Mr. Yamamoto said simply. "Your insights today showed a level of understanding that goes well beyond what we've covered in class. Your bearing is different too. More confident, but also more careful." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Mr. Yamamoto had always been perceptive, but this level of observation was unexpected. "I had a lot of time to think while I was away," Marcus said, hoping his voice sounded casual. Mr. Yamamoto walked to the window and gazed out at the parking lot. "You know, I've been teaching physics for over 20 years, Marcus. In that time, I've learned to recognize when a student has encountered ideas beyond the scope of our curriculum. Usually, it's because they've been reading advanced university texts or attending science camps." He turned back to Marcus, and his expression was serious. "But sometimes, very rarely, I encounter a student who seems to have gained knowledge through direct experience rather than study. Students who talk about quantum mechanics like they've actually observed it in action, rather than just reading about it in textbooks." Marcus felt his heart rate spike, and he knew that Mr. Yamamoto's enhanced perception would pick up on his stress response. The neural conditioning was sending warning signals through his nervous system, reminding him of the consequences of revealing classified information. "I'm not sure what you mean," Marcus said carefully. Mr. Yamamoto nodded slowly. "Perhaps I'm overthinking things. But, Marcus, if you ever need someone to talk to about complex ideas or unusual experiences, my door is always open. Sometimes the hardest part of learning something new is having no one who can understand what you've discovered." The offer was kind, and Marcus could see the genuine concern in his teacher's eyes. But there was something else there too, a hint of knowledge that made Marcus wonder if Mr. Yamamoto might know more about the world beyond Earth than he let on. "Thank you," Marcus said. "I should get to my next class." "Of course. Just remember, Marcus, knowledge is a burden as much as it is a gift. The key is learning to carry it without letting it isolate you from the people who care about you." Marcus left the classroom with his mind spinning. Was Mr. Yamamoto simply being a good teacher, or was there something more behind his words? In the months since his return to Earth, Marcus had begun to suspect that humanity's first contact with alien civilizations might not have been as recent as he'd been led to believe. But, if that were true, it would mean that the conspiracy to hide extraterrestrial knowledge went far deeper than he'd imagined. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of familiar classes and unfamiliar dynamics. In chemistry, his lab partner spent the entire period texting and barely acknowledged his return. In history, Mrs. Patterson welcomed him back with obvious relief, apparently grateful to have one of her more engaged students return to class discussions about the Cold War. By lunchtime, Marcus felt emotionally exhausted. The constant effort of suppressing his enhanced abilities and knowledge while trying to reconnect with his old life was more draining than any physical challenge he'd faced in space. He found Jake at their usual table in the corner of the cafeteria, surrounded by the same group of science-minded students they'd always eaten with. "Marcus," called out Elena Vasquez, a fellow member of the academic decathlon team. "Jake told us you were back. Where have you been hiding?" As Marcus sat down with his lunch tray, he found himself surrounded by curious faces. These were his people, the academically focused students who'd never quite fit into the standard high school social hierarchies. They'd been his allies and friends for 4 years, but now he felt like an outsider looking in. "Family emergency," he said, repeating his well-practiced explanation. "Had to help take care of my uncle." "That sucks," said David Park, a quiet kid who'd been Marcus's partner for several science fair projects. "But you're back for senior year, right? We need you for academic decathlon. The new questions they're using are insane." Marcus found himself genuinely smiling for the first time that day. "Yeah, I'm back for good." The conversation moved on to familiar topics, upcoming tests, college applications, gossip about teachers and other students. Marcus let the normalcy wash over him, trying to remember what it felt like to worry about things like SAT scores and prom themes. But, even as he laughed at Jake's story about their chemistry teacher's latest lab accident, part of his mind remained alert, monitoring the cafeteria for threats that would never come. It was during this moment of relative peace that Marcus's enhanced hearing picked up a conversation from across the cafeteria that made his blood run cold. "The new shipment arrives tonight," a voice was saying. "Tell our contact that the testing facility is ready." Marcus turned his head slightly, trying to locate the source without being obvious. At a table near the windows, 2 people in janitor uniforms were having a quiet conversation. To anyone else, it would have seemed like normal workplace chatter, but Marcus's alien-enhanced perception caught subtle details that set off every alarm in his modified nervous system. The woman speaking had a slight accent that his linguistic analysis programs identified as Zephyrian. More importantly, the energy signature emanating from both individuals was unlike anything purely human. They were hybrids, beings with alien modifications similar to his own. Marcus forced himself to continue eating while his enhanced hearing focused on their conversation. "The boy is back," the male hybrid said. "The one who was off-world. Command wants him monitored, not approached." "Understood. How much does he know?" "Unknown. But his readings are off the charts. Whatever they did to him out there, he's not fully human anymore." Marcus nearly choked on his sandwich. They were talking about him. Somehow, his return to Earth hadn't gone unnoticed. These weren't just random aliens hiding on Earth, they were part of an organized operation, and they knew about his modifications. The implications hit him like a physical blow. His presence was putting everyone around him in danger, especially the people he cared about most. Jake, Elena, David, all his friends and teachers were potential targets simply because of their association with him. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch period. As students began clearing their tables and heading to afternoon classes, Marcus watched the 2 hybrids stand and walk toward the exit. The woman glanced in his direction for just a moment, and Marcus saw recognition in her eyes. She knew that he'd been listening. "You okay, man?" Jake asked, noticing Marcus's distraction. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Marcus forced himself to smile and stand up. "Yeah, just tired. It's been a long day." But, as he walked toward his afternoon classes, Marcus's mind was racing. Earth wasn't the safe haven he'd thought it was. The war he'd fought to prevent was already here, hidden beneath the surface of normal human society. And, somehow, his high school had become ground zero for something much larger and more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. The question now was whether he could protect his friends and family without revealing the truth about what he'd become. Because one thing was certain, his days of pretending to be a normal teenager were over before they'd really begun. Marcus spent the rest of the afternoon classes in a state of heightened alertness, his enhanced senses scanning constantly for any sign of the hybrid operatives he'd spotted during lunch. Every janitor who passed by in the hallway, every substitute teacher, every visitor to the school became a potential threat in his mind. The neural implants that had once helped him navigate intergalactic politics were now working overtime to process the mundane environment of high school while watching for signs of alien infiltration. During AP Literature, while Mrs. Chin discussed the symbolism in The Great Gatsby, Marcus found himself analyzing the heating vents for possible surveillance equipment and calculating how quickly he could evacuate the classroom if necessary. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was more paranoid sitting in English class than he'd been while negotiating with warrior species that considered humans a minor annoyance. When the final bell rang at 3:15, Marcus gathered his books slowly, watching as his classmates rushed toward the exits with typical teenage urgency. He needed time to think, to plan his next move. The discovery that hostile aliens had infiltrated his high school changed everything. His mission was no longer about readjusting to normal life. It was about protecting the people around him while figuring out what the enemy was planning. Jake appeared at his locker as Marcus was organizing his textbooks. "Hey, want to come over and work on physics homework? Mr. Yamamoto already assigned problem sets, and some of this quantum stuff is melting my brain." The offer was tempting. Marcus genuinely missed the simple pleasure of helping his best friend with science problems, but his new reality made such normal activities dangerous. If the aliens were monitoring him, anyone he spent time with could become a target. "I wish I could," Marcus said, closing his locker. "But I've got a lot of catching up to do." "Rain check?" Jake's expression showed disappointment, but he nodded. "Sure, man. Just don't disappear on me again, okay? This place is weird enough without my lab partner vanishing into thin air." After Jake left, Marcus waited in the nearly empty hallway, pretending to check his phone while actually using his enhanced hearing to monitor the school. Most of the students and teachers had departed, leaving behind the usual skeleton crew of janitors and administrative staff. But, among the normal sounds of after-school cleanup, Marcus detected something that made his enhanced reflexes tense. Footsteps in the basement, moving with military precision. Low voices speaking in a language that his linguistic analysis identified as a Zephyrian dialect. The scrape of heavy objects being moved across concrete floors. Marcus made his way toward the basement access, moving with the silent stride he'd learned from Vorthan stealth specialists. The stairwell was dimly lit and smelled of industrial cleaning supplies and old concrete. As he descended, the alien voices became clearer. "The neural interface modules are responding well to the Earth environment," one voice was saying. "Command believes we can begin Phase 2 within the week." "What about the human test subjects?" another voice asked. "Acquisition is proceeding on schedule. The local population shows no awareness of our presence. Their primitive security systems are laughable." Marcus reached the bottom of the stairs and peered around the corner into the basement corridor. What he saw made his enhanced physiology flood with combat hormones. The basement had been converted into a sophisticated laboratory, with equipment that definitely hadn't come from Earth. Cylindrical containment units lined one wall, each filled with a glowing blue fluid that Marcus recognized as Zephyrian biostasis gel. 3 figures in janitor uniforms were moving around the lab, but their movements had the fluid precision of trained operatives. As Marcus watched, one of them approached a control panel and began entering commands using technology that wouldn't be invented by human scientists for decades. How many subjects do we need for the final test? The operator asked. Command wants at least 50 for a statistically significant sample, came the reply. Students are preferred. Their neural plasticity makes the integration process more efficient. Marcus felt sick. They were planning to experiment on his classmates, possibly turning them into hybrid beings like himself. But, unlike his voluntary transformation, which had been necessary to save his life and had been performed by allied species, this would be forced conversion for unknown purposes. He activated the quantum communication array that had been installed in his neural implants, sending an encrypted message to his Galactic Council contact. The response came back almost immediately, causing words to appear directly in his visual field. Situation understood. Maintain cover. Do not engage until Council operatives arrive. Estimated time to deployment, 72 hours. 72 hours. Marcus almost laughed at the absurdity. His alien allies, for all their advanced technology and good intentions, still didn't understand human timescales. In 72 hours, these operatives could abduct dozens of students and begin their experiments. By the time help arrived, it would be too late. Marcus retreated up the stairs, his mind working through possible courses of action. He could try to warn the authorities, but explaining how he knew about alien infiltrators would require revealing classified information that his neural conditioning made physically impossible to share. He could attempt to sabotage their operation, but he was outnumbered and operating in an environment where any unusual activity would be immediately noticed. The sound of footsteps above made him freeze. Someone was coming down the main hallway toward the basement access. Marcus quickly moved to hide behind a bank of lockers as Derek Hoffman and two of his football teammates appeared at the top of the basement stairs. "You sure about this?" one of Derek's friends was asking. "Breaking into the basement seems like a good way to get expelled." "Trust me," Derek replied, his voice carrying an odd confidence that hadn't been there during their earlier encounter. "The stuff down there is worth way more than anything we could get suspended for." Marcus watched in growing alarm as the three boys descended into the basement. Derek was leading them directly into the alien laboratory. Either he was incredibly unlucky, or something else was going on. The sound of surprised shouts echoed up from below, followed by the distinctive hum of Zephyrian energy weapons charging. Marcus abandoned stealth and sprinted down the stairs, his enhanced speed carrying him into the basement in seconds. The scene that greeted him was chaos. Derek and his friends were backed against the wall, faces pale with terror as they stared at the alien technology around them. The three hybrid operatives had dropped their human disguises, revealing the distinctive gray-blue skin and elongated limbs of their Zephyrian heritage. Energy weapons were trained on the boys, who looked like they were about to either faint or throw up. Human juveniles were not supposed to access this facility, one of the aliens was saying in accented English. This complicates the timeline significantly. Terminate them, another suggested. 3 missing students will be attributed to normal human causes. Marcus stepped into the room, his own hybrid nature allowing him to move faster than pure human reflexes could track. He positioned himself between the aliens and the terrified boys, every enhanced system in his body coming online. "Let them go," Marcus said, his voice carrying harmonics that his modified vocal cords could produce. "Your business is with me." The lead alien turned toward him, and Marcus saw recognition flicker in its large, dark eyes. "The returnee. Command will be pleased." "Command can go explain themselves to the Galactic Council," Marcus replied. "These boys are under my protection." The alien's expression shifted to something that might have been amusement. "You think your council allies matter here? This is Earth, little hybrid. Beyond their reach and jurisdiction." Behind him, Marcus could hear Derek hyperventilating and muttering something about hallucinations and stress. The poor kid's worldview was being shattered in real time, and Marcus felt guilty for dragging innocent bystanders into this situation. "What do you want?" Marcus asked, trying to buy time while his tactical systems analyzed the room for weaknesses. "The same thing any conqueror wants," the alien replied. "Resources, territory, and compliant populations. Your species has proven remarkably adaptable to our modification techniques. Soon, Earth will provide us with the hybrid army we need to reclaim our lost territories." The war with the Ethereals ended, Marcus said. The peace accords were signed by all parties. Peace is a luxury for species that can afford it, the alien snarled. The Zephyrian Empire was broken by that war. We lost our homeworlds, our fleets, our people. The accords gave us nothing but empty promises and exile to the outer systems. Marcus began to understand. These weren't official representatives of the Zephyrian government. They were rogue elements, refugees from the war who had decided to take what they needed rather than accept the peace settlement. Taking Earth won't bring back what you lost, Marcus said. It will only start another war. Perhaps. But, this time, we will not be the ones who lose. The alien raised its weapon, but Marcus was already moving. His enhanced reflexes kicked in, time seeming to slow as his adrenal modifications flooded his system with performance-enhancing compounds. He dove to the side, grabbing a piece of human-made equipment and hurling it at the nearest containment unit. The impact shattered the biostasis chamber, sending blue gel and electrical discharge cascading across the laboratory floor. Alarms began wailing as the alien technology registered the damage to their systems. Secure the returnee, the lead alien shouted. Terminate the witnesses. Marcus rolled behind a lab table, his mind racing through tactical options. 3 armed hostiles, unknown additional forces possibly en route, and 3 innocent bystanders who needed protection. His enhanced physiology could probably handle the immediate threat, but using his full capabilities would reveal the extent of his modifications to Derek and his friends. A blast of energy scorched the air where his head had been moments before. Marcus grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and triggered it, filling the air with concealing foam while his enhanced vision tracked the aliens through the chaos. Stay down and don't look up, he shouted to Derek and the others. Marcus vaulted over the lab table, moving with inhuman speed and precision. His first target never saw him coming. A precisely calculated blow to the nerve cluster at the base of the alien's neck dropped the operative instantly. The second alien turned toward him, energy weapon charging, but Marcus was already inside its guard. A strike to the weapon hand sent the energy rifle clattering across the floor. The third alien had a clear shot at Marcus's exposed back, but before it could fire, the lights in the laboratory suddenly went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, casting everything in an eerie red glow. Impressive, but unnecessary. The voice came from the basement stairs, and Marcus turned to see a figure descending into the laboratory. At first glance, the newcomer appeared to be just another janitor, but Marcus's enhanced senses immediately identified the energy signature of advanced alien modifications. Mr. Yamamoto? Marcus said in shock, recognizing his physics teacher despite the man's transformed appearance. Not quite the lesson plan you were expecting, I'm sure, his teacher replied, stepping over the unconscious alien operative. Though I did promise we would explore the practical applications of quantum mechanics. The remaining 2 aliens backed away from the new arrival, their weapons trained on him but their body language showing uncertainty. You are not authorized to interfere with this operation, one of them said. Actually, I am. Mr. Yamamoto reached into his jacket and withdrew what looked like a standard cell phone but began projecting holographic symbols that Marcus recognized as Galactic Council authorization codes. Observer Prime Designation 7. I've been monitoring this world for longer than your species has had interstellar travel. Marcus felt his understanding of reality shift once again. His physics teacher was an alien observer, apparently one with significant authority. The implications were staggering. The Council explicitly forbade intervention in sector-neutral zones, the alien protested. The Accords also forbade unauthorized modification of native populations, Mr. Yamamoto replied calmly. Your presence here violates approximately 17 different treaty provisions. Stand down, and your operatives will be repatriated to Zephyrian space. Continue this operation, and I will be forced to classify this as an invasion. The 2 remaining aliens exchanged glances, clearly weighing their options. Finally, the leader lowered its weapon. This is not over, it said. Our people are dying in exile while the Council debates procedure. We will find another way. Perhaps, Mr. Yamamoto agreed. But it will not be here, and it will not be today. The aliens began collecting their unconscious comrade and their most portable equipment. Within minutes, they had retreated up the stairs, leaving behind the larger pieces of laboratory equipment but taking anything that could be easily transported. Marcus turned his attention to Derek and his friends, who were huddled against the wall in various states of shock. Derek himself seemed to be the most coherent, though his hands were shaking as he stared at the alien technology surrounding them. "What the hell was that?" Derek demanded, his voice cracking. "Those things weren't human. None of this makes sense." Mr. Yamamoto walked over to the boys, and Marcus noticed that his teacher's appearance was somehow becoming more normal, as if the alien modifications were being concealed in real time. "You boys had an adventure," Mr. Yamamoto said, his voice taking on a strangely hypnotic quality. "You broke into the basement looking for something to steal, but all you found were some old chemistry supplies and outdated computer equipment. When Marcus found you down here, you were so embarrassed about the breaking and entering that you promised to never mention it to anyone." Marcus watched in fascination as Derek's expression became glazed and distant. The other two boys showed similar signs of mental manipulation, their memories apparently being edited in real time. "Memory modification?" Marcus asked quietly. "Standard procedure for unauthorized contact events," Mr. Yamamoto replied. "Don't worry, it's completely harmless. They'll remember breaking into the basement, but the alien encounter will seem like a stress-induced hallucination that they've agreed to never discuss." The boys began filing up the stairs, their movements slow and dreamlike. Derek paused at the bottom of the steps and looked back at Marcus with an expression that seemed almost apologetic. "Sorry for being such a jerk this morning, Chen," he said. "You're all right." After they left, Marcus found himself alone in the basement laboratory with his physics teacher, who was apparently an ancient alien observer. The day had taken so many unexpected turns that Marcus felt like his enhanced mental processing was struggling to keep up. "How long have you known about me?" Marcus asked. "Since the day you enrolled at Westfield High," Mr. Yamamoto replied, beginning to disable the remaining alien equipment. "Actually, since before that. Council observers have been monitoring your family line for 3 generations, waiting for the genetic combination that would make successful modification possible." "My family line?" Marcus said, confused. "Your great-grandfather participated in what your people call the Roswell incident. He was one of the humans who helped our advanced scouts make contact with your government. The neural patterns necessary for our technology integration are partly hereditary." Marcus sank into a nearby chair, overwhelmed by the implications. "So this was all planned? My selection for the peace negotiations, the modifications, everything?" "Not planned, exactly. But anticipated. We knew that eventually, Earth would need a representative who could function in galactic society. You were identified as a candidate, but the final choice to participate was entirely yours." Mr. Yamamoto finished dismantling the last piece of alien equipment and turned to face Marcus. "The question now is what we do about the rogue Zephyrians. They've retreated, but they won't give up. Earth represents their best chance for rebuilding their military strength. Can't the Council stop them? Official Council intervention would require a formal petition from Earth's government, which would mean revealing the existence of alien life to your population. The political and social disruption would be enormous." Marcus understood. Humanity wasn't ready for the truth about their place in the galactic community. The revelation that aliens existed would fundamentally change every aspect of human civilization, and not necessarily for the better. "So what are our options?" "Unofficial intervention," Mr. Yamamoto said with a slight smile. "A human hybrid working with a council observer to protect Earth from unauthorized alien activity. Completely deniable if things go wrong, but effective enough to handle threats like the Zephyrian operation." Marcus looked around at the basement laboratory, already mostly restored to its normal appearance. "You want me to be Earth's secret defender? I want you to be what you already are, Marcus. A bridge between worlds. But, yes, part of that responsibility involves protecting your home from threats that official channels can't handle." As they climbed the stairs back to the main floor of the school, Marcus felt the weight of his new reality settling on his shoulders. His hopes for a normal senior year were definitely over, but perhaps that had been unrealistic from the beginning. He wasn't a normal teenager anymore, and he never would be again. "One more question," Marcus said as they reached the main hallway. "Are there other observers? Other people like me?" "More than you might think," Mr. Yamamoto replied. "Earth has been under protective observation for longer than your species has recorded history. Most humans never encounter our presence, but a few, like yourself, become active participants in that protection." The hallway was empty now, filled with the late afternoon sunlight streaming through tall windows. It looked perfectly normal, like any other high school on any other day. But Marcus knew he would never see it the same way again. Beneath the surface of normal human life, a hidden war was being fought for the future of his planet. As they walked toward the main exit, Marcus realized that tomorrow would bring new challenges. The Zephyrian operatives would regroup and adapt their strategy. Other threats might emerge from the shadows. And he would have to continue pretending to be a normal student while secretly protecting everyone around him. The teen combatant had indeed come back to a nightmare school life. But, as Marcus stepped out into the afternoon sun, he found himself oddly excited about the challenge ahead. For the first time since returning to Earth, he felt like he had a purpose that was worthy of the abilities he'd gained among the stars. Marcus arrived at school the next morning to find that the basement incident had been covered up with typical Galactic Council efficiency. When he passed Derek Hoffman in the hallway, the bigger boy actually nodded at him with what might have been respect, though his eyes held a distant, confused look. The memory modification had worked perfectly, leaving Derek with the impression that he owed Marcus some undefined debt of gratitude. Mr. Yamamoto's first period physics class proceeded normally, but Marcus caught subtle glances from his teacher that carried layers of meaning invisible to the other students. During the lesson on electromagnetic fields, Mr. Yamamoto made several references to invisible forces that shape our reality while looking directly at Marcus. The other students assumed it was just another of their teacher's philosophical tangents, but Marcus understood the real message: the alien threat was still active, and they needed to remain vigilant. It was during lunch that Marcus first noticed the new substitute teacher. Ms. Reeves had apparently been called in to cover for the economics teacher, who had suddenly taken sick leave. She was young, probably no older than 25, with auburn hair and green eyes that seemed to track movement with unusual precision. To most observers, she appeared to be just another overqualified college graduate taking substitute work while looking for a permanent position. But Marcus's enhanced senses picked up details that would have been invisible to normal human perception. Her heartbeat was too steady, maintaining an almost mechanical rhythm that suggested artificial regulation. Her movements had the controlled grace of someone accustomed to operating in variable gravity environments. Most telling of all, the energy signature emanating from her nervous system showed the characteristic patterns of advanced alien modifications. As Marcus sat with Jake and their usual group, he found himself watching Ms. Reeves move through the cafeteria. She was observing students with the systematic attention of someone conducting surveillance, making mental notes about group dynamics and social hierarchies. "Earth to Marcus," Jake said, waving a hand in front of his face. "You're staring at the new sub like she's going to disappear if you blink." "Sorry," Marcus said, forcing himself to focus on the conversation. "Just thought I recognized her from somewhere." "She's definitely new," Elena chimed in. "I had her for third period." "Seems nice enough, but she asks weird questions. Like, she wanted to know about our extracurricular activities and which students were considered leaders in their social groups." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The substitute was profiling students, identifying targets for potential recruitment or elimination. The Zephyrians hadn't given up, they'd simply changed tactics. Did she show particular interest in anyone specific? Marcus asked, trying to keep his tone casual. "Actually, yeah," David said. "She seemed really interested when I mentioned academic decathlon. Asked about test scores and who the smartest kids in school were. I thought maybe she was looking for tutoring opportunities." Marcus's enhanced hearing suddenly picked up a conversation from across the cafeteria that made his blood run cold. "MS." Reeves was speaking quietly into what appeared to be a standard cell phone, but Marcus could detect the quantum encryption signatures that indicated off-world communication. Initial assessment confirms the target pool is adequate, she was saying in perfect English, though Marcus's linguistic analysis detected subtle Zephyrian grammar patterns. Recommend proceeding to Phase 2 within 48 hours. Marcus stood up abruptly, startling his friends. I just remembered I need to check something with Mr. Yamamoto about yesterday's homework. Before anyone could respond, he was moving across the cafeteria with carefully controlled speed. He needed to intercept Ms. Reeves before she could complete whatever operation she was planning, but he also couldn't reveal his abilities in front of hundreds of witnesses. As he approached her table, Ms. Reeves ended her conversation and looked up at him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Marcus Chen, she said, somehow knowing his name despite never having him in class. I've heard interesting things about you. Have you? Marcus replied, sliding into the seat across from her. That's funny, because I've never taken economics. Word gets around. Apparently, you're quite the academic achiever. High test scores, excellent analytical thinking, natural leadership potential. Her green eyes studied his face with predatory intensity. The kind of student who represents the best of human potential. Marcus felt his enhanced reflexes tense. The way she emphasized human potential suggested she knew exactly what he was. I'm flattered by the attention, Marcus said carefully. But I'm really just trying to catch up on the work I missed while I was away. Ah yes, your mysterious absence. Family emergency, wasn't it? Ms. Reeves leaned forward slightly, and Marcus caught a whiff of ozone and copper that his enhanced olfactory systems identified as the byproduct of Zephyrian biomodifications. Must have been quite an adventure. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Mr. Yamamoto, who approached their table with 2 cups of coffee from the faculty lounge. His timing was too perfect to be coincidental. Ms. Reeves, isn't it, he said, offering her one of the cups. I'm Robert Yamamoto, Physics Department. I don't think we've been properly introduced. Sarah Reeves, she replied, accepting the coffee with apparent gratitude. Thank you, this is very kind. Marcus watched the interaction with fascination. On the surface, it appeared to be nothing more than a friendly gesture between colleagues. But his enhanced perception picked up the subtle interplay of alien technologies. The coffee cup that Mr. Yamamoto had given her contained trace quantities of a compound that Marcus recognized as a Zephyrian neural inhibitor. His physics teacher was drugging the enemy operative. I was just getting acquainted with one of your star students, Ms. Reeves said, taking a sip of the coffee. Marcus has quite an impressive academic record. Indeed he does, Mr. Yamamoto agreed, settling into a chair with his own coffee. Though I suspect his real talents lie beyond the classroom. The comment hung in the air with loaded meaning. Ms. Reeves's eyes narrowed slightly as she studied Mr. Yamamoto's face, apparently trying to determine whether his words carried hidden significance. It's refreshing to meet educators who recognize that students have potential beyond standardized test scores, she said carefully. Oh, I believe in exploring all kinds of untapped potential, Mr. Yamamoto replied. In fact, I was just thinking about organizing an after-school science program. Something focused on advanced concepts that aren't typically covered in the standard curriculum. Marcus understood immediately. Mr. Yamamoto was creating a cover story for bringing together the students who might be targeted by the Zephyrian operation. An exclusive academic program would provide a legitimate reason to identify and monitor the school's highest-achieving students. That sounds wonderful, Ms. Reeves said, though Marcus could see that the neural inhibitor was beginning to affect her concentration. Her responses were becoming slightly delayed, and she was blinking more frequently than before. I'd be happy to help identify students who might benefit from such a program. I'm sure you would, Mr. Yamamoto said with a smile that carried the barest hint of menace. Perhaps we could discuss it further during your planning period? I have some ideas about curriculum that might interest you. As the lunch period drew to a close, Ms. Reeves excused herself and headed toward the faculty restroom. Marcus watched her go, noting that her gait was slightly unsteady. How long will that inhibitor last? Marcus asked quietly. 6 to 8 hours, Mr. Yamamoto replied. Long enough for us to determine the full scope of their operation and plan our response. Us? Did you think you were the only hybrid on this planet, Marcus? Earth has been protected by people like us for longer than modern human civilization has existed. Today, you join that tradition officially. Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The idea of working with other enhanced humans to protect Earth appealed to him, but he was also acutely aware of how much he still didn't know about the hidden world operating beneath the surface of normal life. The afternoon classes passed uneventfully, but Marcus remained on high alert. During AP Literature, he used his enhanced hearing to monitor Ms. Reeves's substitute teaching session 2 doors down. The neural inhibitor was definitely affecting her performance. She stumbled over basic economic concepts that any qualified teacher should have known instinctively. It was during his last class of the day that Marcus received his first official mission briefing. The information came directly through his neural implants in the form of encrypted data packets that appeared as text overlays in his visual field. Target, Zephyrian Reconnaissance Operative, Designation Reeves Mission, Prevent Activation of Beacon Device, Secure Intelligence Timeline, before 1800 hours local time support, Observer Prime 7 will coordinate authorization, Council Emergency Protocol Zeta. Marcus felt his heart rate spike as he absorbed the implications. Ms. Reeves wasn't just gathering intelligence, she was preparing to activate some kind of beacon device. Presumably, this would signal the main Zephyrian force to begin their invasion or abduction operation. When the final bell rang, Marcus gathered his books and headed toward Mr. Yamamoto's physics classroom. He found his teacher erasing equations from the whiteboard while several students worked on lab reports at nearby tables. "Could I get some help with yesterday's assignment?" Marcus asked loud enough for the other students to hear. "Of course. Let me just finish up here." Mr. Yamamoto dismissed the remaining students and waited until they had left the classroom. Once they were alone, he activated a device that Marcus recognized as a Galactic Council privacy shield. "The situation is more serious than I initially thought," Mr. Yamamoto said without preamble. "Our surveillance indicates that Ms. Reeves is part of a larger operation involving at least 12 operatives embedded throughout the local area." Marcus sank into a nearby desk chair. 12? How long have they been here? Based on the sophistication of their integration, possibly years. They've been preparing for this operation for a long time, waiting for the right moment to act. What changed? Why are they moving now? Mr. Yamamoto pulled up a holographic display showing orbital tracking data. 3 days ago, a Zephyrian fleet entered the outer solar system. They're maintaining position beyond Pluto, far enough out to avoid detection by human space monitoring systems. Marcus studied the display, noting the size and configuration of the alien vessels. "That's not a reconnaissance fleet. Those are troop transports." "Exactly. The operatives on Earth are preparing the way for a full-scale invasion. The beacon device that Ms. Reeves is carrying will signal the fleet that Earth's defenses have been compromised and the population is ready for conversion." "How many people are we talking about?" "If they succeed in activating their beacon and establishing their ground operations, they could process the entire human population within a matter of months. Every person on Earth would become a hybrid soldier in their army of conquest." The scope of the threat was staggering. Marcus had thought he was dealing with a small group of rogue operatives, but this was something much larger and more organized. "What's our move?" Marcus asked. Mr. Yamamoto manipulated the holographic display, showing the layout of the school building with several red indicators marking potential threat locations. "MS. Reeves will attempt to activate the beacon device after normal school hours, when the building is mostly empty. Our intelligence suggests she's converted at least 3 other faculty members to serve as backup operators." Converted? Forced neural integration with Zephyrian control technology. They appear human, but their minds are no longer their own. Marcus felt sick thinking about his teachers being turned into alien puppets. Can the conversion be reversed? Unknown. The process is relatively new, developed specifically for this operation. We'll need to capture one of them alive to determine if the integration can be undone. The mission was becoming more complex by the minute. Not only did they need to prevent the beacon activation, but they also had to try to save any humans who had been forcibly converted. "What kind of support can I expect?" Marcus asked. "Limited. Official council response teams are still 72 hours out. Until then, it's just us and whatever resources we can improvise locally. Marcus nodded, accepting the reality of the situation. Then, we better get started. Mr. Yamamoto began gathering equipment from hidden compartments around his classroom, revealing an arsenal of alien technology that had been disguised as standard educational materials. Energy weapons that looked like scientific calculators, scanner devices built into tablet computers, and what appeared to be a full tactical communication array hidden inside a filing cabinet. How long have you been preparing for this? Marcus asked, impressed by the thoroughness of the setup. 47 years, Mr. Yamamoto replied matter-of-factly. I've been the primary council observer for this sector since 1979. This classroom has served as my base of operations for the entire time. As they finished their preparations, Marcus felt a familiar surge of pre-combat adrenaline. His enhanced physiology was preparing for action, optimizing his reflexes and cognitive processing for the challenge ahead. One last question, Marcus said. Why now? Why reveal all of this to me today instead of continuing to operate in secret? Mr. Yamamoto paused in his equipment check and looked at Marcus with an expression of profound seriousness. Because, Marcus, you represent something new in the galaxy. A human who has been voluntarily enhanced rather than conquered or converted. Your very existence proves that humans can be partners in the galactic community rather than subjects or slaves. He gestured toward the school around them. These people, your friends and teachers and classmates, they represent the future that the Council hopes to build. A humanity that takes its place among the stars as equals, not servants. The Zephyrians threatened to steal that future. Marcus understood. This wasn't just about stopping an alien invasion. It was about preserving humanity's chance to evolve naturally into a spacefaring civilization, rather than being forced into slavery or conversion. As the sun began to set outside the classroom windows, Marcus and Mr. Yamamoto finalized their plans for the evening ahead. They would have to move carefully and quietly, protecting the school and its occupants while preventing a signal that could doom their entire species. The teen combatant was about to face his greatest challenge yet, not in the depths of space, but in the familiar hallways of his own high school. And, this time, the stakes couldn't be higher. The school building felt different after hours, transformed from a bustling center of teenage life into something resembling a military installation under siege. Marcus moved through the darkened hallways with enhanced stealth protocols active, his modified nervous system automatically adjusting his footsteps to minimize sound while his enhanced vision cut through the shadows like daylight. Mr. Yamamoto communicated with him through their shared neural link, a connection that felt strange but efficient. Having another person's thoughts intersecting with his own consciousness reminded Marcus of the mind melds he'd experienced with ethereal diplomats, though this link felt more mechanical and less profound. 3 heat signatures in the main office, came Mr. Yamamoto's mental transmission. 2 more in the library. The beacon device is registering from somewhere on the 3rd floor. Marcus was positioned near the main stairwell, having approached from the gymnasium entrance while Mr. Yamamoto coordinated the operation from his physics classroom. Their plan was simple in concept but complex in execution: locate and neutralize the Zephyrian operatives while preventing the activation of the beacon device that would signal the waiting invasion fleet. Any sign of the converted faculty members? Marcus asked through the link. Negative so far. But, remember, they'll appear completely human until activated. Watch for anyone whose behavior seems off. Marcus began climbing the stairs to the 3rd floor, his enhanced hearing picking up the subtle sounds of movement above. Someone was definitely active up there, moving with the careful precision of an operative conducting a technical operation. As he reached the 3rd floor landing, Marcus's enhanced olfactory systems detected the distinctive chemical signature of Zephyrian biomodifications. The scent was stronger here, indicating that multiple operatives were concentrated in this area. The hallway stretched before him, lined with classroom doors and occasional trophy cases. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow that his enhanced vision could easily penetrate, but which would severely limit normal human sight. The aliens were counting on that advantage. Marcus moved toward the source of the beacon signal, which his neural implants were tracking through electromagnetic analysis. The device was powerful, requiring significant energy to punch a signal through Earth's atmosphere to the waiting fleet in the outer solar system. Contact, came Mr. Yamamoto's urgent mental transmission. 2 operatives moving toward your position from the east corridor. They're carrying what appears to be portable weaponry. Marcus pressed himself against the wall beside a bank of lockers, activating his enhanced camouflage systems. The technology wasn't true invisibility, but it could bend light around his body enough to make him difficult to spot in low-light conditions. 2 figures rounded the corner, moving with the fluid coordination of trained soldiers. They wore the standard uniforms of school security guards, but their movements betrayed their alien nature. Marcus could see the energy weapons hidden beneath their jackets, disguised as standard security equipment. As they passed his position, Marcus made his decision. Rather than engage them directly, he followed at a distance, hoping they would lead him to the beacon device or reveal the locations of other operatives. The 2 aliens moved down the hallway to a classroom that Marcus recognized as Mr. Peterson's chemistry lab. One of them produced a sophisticated lock-picking device, and they were inside within seconds. Through the classroom windows, Marcus could see them setting up equipment that definitely hadn't come from Earth. A cylindrical device about the size of a fire extinguisher was being assembled from component parts, while various scanning instruments were arranged around it in a precise pattern. Found the beacon, Marcus transmitted to Mr. Yamamoto. Chemistry lab, 3rd floor east wing. 2 operatives on site, probably more incoming. Confirmed. I'm detecting additional movement throughout the building. This is the activation phase. Marcus studied the beacon assembly through the window, trying to understand its operation. The device appeared to be nearly complete, with only a few final connections remaining. If he was going to act, it had to be now. He entered the classroom through the door the operatives had left unlocked, moving with inhuman silence across the linoleum floor. His enhanced reflexes allowed him to process multiple combat scenarios simultaneously, calculating angles of attack and optimal strike patterns. The first operative never saw him coming. Marcus's strike to the neural cluster at the base of the alien's skull dropped it instantly, the precise blow overwhelming its modified nervous system. The second operative spun toward the sound, energy weapon rising, but Marcus was already inside its guard. The struggle was brief but intense. The alien was strong and well-trained, but Marcus had advantages that its combat programming hadn't anticipated. His human unpredictability combined with alien enhancements created a fighting style that was difficult to counter. When the second operative fell unconscious, Marcus turned his attention to the beacon device. The alien technology was sophisticated but not incomprehensible to someone with his level of modification. His neural implants interfaced with the device's control systems, allowing him to understand its function and current status. The beacon was 96% charged and would be ready to transmit within minutes. Marcus began the shutdown sequence, his enhanced cognitive processing working through the alien command protocols. Marcus, we have a problem. Mr. Yamamoto's mental transmission carried urgent alarm. I'm detecting massive energy buildup from the main office. They have a backup beacon. Marcus felt his heart sink. The Zephyrians had been more thorough than they'd anticipated. While he'd been focused on the obvious threat in the chemistry lab, they'd been preparing a second beacon in a different location. How long until activation? Based on the energy signature, less than 5 minutes. Marcus completed the shutdown of the chemistry lab beacon and began moving toward the main office. But, as he stepped into the hallway, he found his path blocked by a familiar figure. Ms. Reeves stood at the far end of the corridor, no longer bothering to maintain her human disguise. Her appearance had shifted to reveal the distinctive gray-blue skin and elongated limbs of her Zephyrian heritage. More concerning, she was holding what Marcus recognized as a military-grade energy weapon. The hybrid child, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that human vocal cords couldn't produce. You've caused considerable disruption to our operation. That was the idea, Marcus replied, activating his own enhanced combat systems. Your interference ends here. This world will serve the Empire, whether your council approves or not. Ms. Reeves raised her weapon, but, before she could fire, the lights in the hallway suddenly flashed on. Both Marcus and the alien operative were momentarily blinded by the sudden illumination, but Marcus's enhanced vision adapted more quickly. Nobody move. The voice belonged to Officer Martinez, the school's security guard, who had apparently been drawn by the unusual activity. He stood at the intersection of two hallways, his hand on his sidearm as he tried to process the scene before him. Marcus realized with growing horror that Martinez was completely out of his depth. The security guard saw what appeared to be a student confronting a teacher, with no understanding of the alien technology or the stakes involved. "Officer Martinez," Ms. Reeves said, her appearance shifting back to human normal with disturbing fluidity. "Thank goodness you're here. This student has broken into the building and was vandalizing the chemistry lab." Marcus watched the security guard's expression shift from confusion to understanding. Martinez had known Marcus since he was a freshman, and the idea that he would break into the school seemed completely out of character. "Is that true, Marcus?" Martinez asked, though his tone suggested he didn't believe the accusation. "It's complicated, Officer Martinez," Marcus said carefully. "But Ms. Reeves isn't who she appears to be." Before anyone could respond, the building's fire alarm system suddenly activated. The piercing sound echoed through the hallways as emergency lights began flashing. Through their neural link, Marcus felt Mr. Yamamoto's urgent communication. "The backup beacon has activated. Emergency protocol in effect. We need to evacuate the building immediately." Marcus realized what was happening. The beacon wasn't just a communication device, it was also generating some kind of field effect that could be dangerous to normal humans. Mr. Yamamoto had triggered the fire alarm to clear the building of any innocent bystanders. "We need to get out of here," Marcus said to Officer Martinez. "The building isn't safe." But, even as he spoke, Marcus could see that it was too late. Ms. Reeves had used the distraction of the fire alarm to activate a personal device, and energy was beginning to cascade around her in visible waves. "The beacon network is now online," she announced, her voice carrying over the sound of the alarms. "The fleet will arrive within hours. This world's integration into the Empire begins now." Marcus felt the effect of the beacon immediately. His enhanced nervous system registered electromagnetic pulses designed to disrupt neural activity, though his alien modifications provided some protection. Officer Martinez, however, had no such defenses. The security guard swayed on his feet as the neural disruption field washed over him. His eyes became unfocused, and Marcus could see that his mind was being affected by the alien technology. "Officer Martinez, you need to fight this," Marcus said, moving toward the struggling man. But Ms. Reeves was faster. With inhuman speed, she reached Martinez and placed her hand on his forehead. Marcus watched in horror as bioluminescent patterns spread from her touch across the security guard's skin. "Conversion protocol initiated," she said. "He will serve the Empire now." Marcus launched himself toward Ms. Reeves, but she was already backing away, her mission accomplished. Officer Martinez turned toward Marcus, his movements now carrying the same fluid precision that Marcus associated with alien operatives. "Stop," Martinez said, his voice carrying new harmonics. "Submit to conversion. Resistance is illogical." Marcus found himself facing a nightmare scenario. He was trapped between a Zephyrian operative and a converted human, both of whom were now focused on capturing him. Meanwhile, the beacon was continuing to broadcast its signal to the waiting invasion fleet. Through their neural link, Marcus felt Mr. Yamamoto approaching their position, but his mentor was still several floors away. Marcus would have to handle this situation alone. "Officer Martinez," Marcus said, trying to reach whatever remained of the man's original personality. "You know me. I'm one of your students. Fight the control." For a moment, Martinez's expression flickered with something that might have been recognition. But then, Ms. Reeves spoke a command in the Zephyrian language, and his eyes became cold and focused again. "Enough," Ms. Reeves said. "The conversion process will be much easier if you don't resist." She raised her energy weapon again, but this time Marcus was ready. His enhanced reflexes kicked in, time seeming to slow as his combat systems analyzed the threat. He dove to the side as the energy blast scorched the wall where he'd been standing. Marcus rolled behind a trophy case and tried to assess his options. The converted Martinez was moving to flank him, while Ms. Reeves advanced from the front. His alien enhancements gave him significant advantages, but he was reluctant to use lethal force against Officer Martinez, who was as much a victim as an enemy. Marcus! Mr. Yamamoto's voice echoed down the hallway as his mentor finally arrived on the scene. The beacon signal is interfering with building systems. We need to shut it down now. Marcus saw Mr. Yamamoto appear at the far end of the corridor, carrying what looked like a standard fire extinguisher but which Marcus's enhanced vision identified as a sophisticated. The fleet will arrive whether I am here to witness it or not. Energy began to swirl around her, the distinctive pattern of Zephyrian transport technology. Marcus lunged forward, trying to prevent her escape, but his hand passed through empty air as she vanished. The hallway fell silent except for the continuing wail of the fire alarm. Officer Martinez lay unconscious but breathing, the alien modifications slowly fading from his nervous system. Mr. Yamamoto was already working on a portable device that would locate and disable the backup beacon. How much time do we have? Marcus asked. The signal has been broadcasting for approximately 8 minutes, Mr. Yamamoto replied. At maximum faster-than-light velocity, the invasion fleet could arrive within 6 hours. Marcus felt the weight of failure settling on his shoulders. Despite their efforts, the beacon had successfully transmitted its signal. Earth was about to face an invasion that they had been powerless to prevent. But, even as despair threatened to overwhelm him, Marcus's enhanced cognitive processing began analyzing new possibilities. The battle was not over, it was simply moving to a new phase. And, this time, he would be ready. The next 6 hours transformed Westfield High School into something resembling a military command center. Mr. Yamamoto had activated emergency protocols that brought advanced Galactic Council technology out of decades of hiding, converting his physics classroom into a tactical operations center that coordinated with orbital monitoring stations Marcus had never known existed. Officer Martinez had been treated with advanced neural healing technology and was recovering in the school's medical facility, which turned out to have capabilities far beyond what any normal high school should possess. His memories of the conversion process were fragmented, but he was cooperating fully with the extraordinary circumstances he found himself in. Invasion fleet confirmed approaching Jupiter, announced Dr. Sarah Chen, who had arrived 2 hours earlier and turned out to be both Marcus's distant cousin and a senior council operative working undercover as a local physician. 18 heavy cruisers, approximately 40,000 troops total. Marcus stared at the holographic display showing the solar system, with red indicators marking the advancing Zephyrian fleet. The numbers were overwhelming even for someone with his experience in interstellar warfare. What about Council reinforcements? He asked. Still 36 hours out, Mr. Yamamoto replied grimly. The nearest rapid response fleet is coming from the Centauri sector. They're pushing their engines beyond safe limits, but they won't arrive in time for the initial assault. Marcus studied the tactical situation, his enhanced cognitive processing working through possible scenarios. Earth's existing military forces would be completely ineffective against Zephyrian technology. The planet had no orbital defenses, no energy weapons, no shields. It would be a massacre unless they could find another solution. What assets do we have? Marcus asked. Dr. Chen manipulated the display, highlighting various points of light scattered across Earth's surface. 47 Council observers currently active on the planet, most with moderate combat modifications. 12 hybrid operatives like yourself, though none with your level of enhancement. Various caches of advanced technology hidden in population centers worldwide. That's not nearly enough to stop an invasion force this size. No, Mr. Yamamoto agreed. But it might be enough for something else entirely. Marcus looked at his mentor questioningly. The Zephyrians are counting on the element of surprise and the complete helplessness of the native population, Mr. Yamamoto explained. Their invasion plan assumes that humans will either flee in panic or submit to conversion with minimal resistance. But what if we could change that assumption? You want to reveal the truth to humanity, Marcus said, understanding immediately. The Council has spent decades debating the proper timing for official first contact, Dr. Chen said. The invasion forces the issue. Humanity will learn about alien life today, one way or another. The question is whether they learn as victims or as participants in their own defense. Marcus felt the implications washing over him. They were talking about fundamentally altering human civilization in a matter of hours, revealing the existence of extraterrestrial life and advanced technology that would rewrite every textbook and religious doctrine on the planet. The psychological trauma alone could destabilize society for generations, Marcus pointed out. Possibly, Mr.